Nandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Paravajakacharya, Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Paravajakacharya, Ashtottara Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudирayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nar Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, on this 9th day of October 2027 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are studying Canto 7, The Science of God, Chapter 1, The Supreme Lord is equal to everyone, text number 26. Tasmad Vairanubandhena Nirvairena Bhayena Va Snehat Kamena Vayunjat Katanchin Nekshate Pratak Tasmad Vairana Bandhena Nirvairena Bhayena Va Snehat Kamena Vayunjat Katanchin Nekshate Pratak Tasmad Vairana Bandhena Nirvairena Bhayena Va Snehat Kamena Vayunjat Katanchin Nekshate Pratak Tasmad Vairana Bandhena Nirvairena Bhayena Va Snehat Kamena Vayunjat Katanchin Nekshate Pratak Tasmad Vairana Bandhena Nirvairena Bhayena Va Snehat Kamena Vayunjat Katanchin Nekshate Pratak. Tasmad Vairana Bandhena Nirvairena Bhayena Va Snehat Kamena Vayunjat Katanchin Nekshate Pratak. Tasmad Vairena Bandhena Nirvairena Bhayena Va Snehat Kamena Vayunjat Katanchin Nekshate Pratak. Anyone else here? Tasmad Vairena Bandhena Nirvairena Bhayena Va Snehat Kamena Vayunjat Katanchin Nekshate Pratak. Ladies? Not yet? Anyone online? No. Tasmat, therefore, Vaira Anubandhena, by constant enmity, Nirvairena, by devotion, Bhayena, by fear, Va, or Snehat, from affection, Kamena, by lusty desires, Va, or Yunjat, one should concentrate, Katanchit, somehow or other, Na, not, Ikshate, sees, Pratak, something else. Translation. Therefore, by enmity or by devotional service, By fear, by affection, or by lusty desire? By all of these or any one of them? If a conditioned soul somehow or other concentrates his mind upon the Lord, the result is the same, for the Lord, because of his blissful position, is never affected by enmity or friendship. Purport. From this verse, one should not conclude that because Krishna is unaffected by favorable prayers or unfavorable blasphemy, one should therefore blaspheme the Lord. This is not the regular principle. Can we turn this down a bit? Turn it down. Bhakti Yoga means anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. One should serve Krishna very favorably. This is the real injunction. Here it is said that although an enemy thinks of Krishna unfavorably, the Lord is unaffected by such anti-devotional service. Thus he offers his benedictions, the Lord, offers his benedictions even to Śiśupāla, and similarly inimical conditioned souls. This does not mean, however, that one should be inimical toward the Lord. The stress is given to the favorable execution of devotional service, not purposeful blasphemy of the Lord. It is said, Nindam bhagavatak shrinvangs tatparasya janasya va tato na paitiyak sopi yatyadha sukratachutaha. One who hears blasphemy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees should immediately take action or should leave. Otherwise he will be put into hellish life perpetually. There are many such injunctions. Therefore, as a regulative principle, one should not be unfavorable toward the Lord, but always favorably inclined toward him. Śiśupāla's achievement of oneness with the Supreme Lord was different because Jai and Vijay, from the very beginning of their material existence, were ordained to treat the Supreme Lord as an enemy for 3 lives and then return home back to Godhead. Jai and Vijay inwardly knew that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they purposely became his enemies to be delivered from material life. From the very beginning of their lives, they thought of Lord Krishna as an enemy, and even though blaspheming Lord Krishna, they chanted the holy name of Krishna constantly along with their inimical thoughts. Thus they were purified because of chanting the holy name of Krishna. It is to be understood that even a blasphemer can be freed from sinful activities by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Certainly, therefore, freedom is assured for a devotee who is always favorable to the service of the Lord. This will be clear from the following verse. By rapt attention fixed upon Krishna, one is purified, and thus one is delivered from material life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has very nicely explained the word bhayena, which means by fear. When the gopis went to Krishna in the dead of night, they certainly feared chastisement by their relatives, their husbands, brothers, and fathers. But nonetheless, not caring for their relatives, they went to Krishna. There was certainly fear, but this fear could not check their devotional service to Krishna. One should not mistakenly think that Lord Krishna must be worshipped by an inimical attitude like that of Śiśupāla. The injunction is anukulyasya grahanam patikulyasya varjanam. One should give up unfavorable activities and accept only favorable conditions in devotional service. Generally, if one blasphemes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is punished. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 16:19, Tanaham dvachatakuran samsareshu nararaman chapamya jasramashabhan asurishveva yonishu. There are many, which means that, speaking about the demons in this chapter, that, let's see, I've got the link here. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence into various demonic species of life. There are many such injunctions. One should not try to worship Krishna unfavorably, otherwise he must be punished, at least for one life, to be purified. As one should not try to be killed by embracing an enemy, a tiger or a snake, one should not blaspheme the Supreme Personality of Godhead and become his enemy in order to be put into hellish life. The purpose of this verse is to emphasize that even the enemy of the Lord can be delivered. What to speak of is friend. Srila Madhvacharya also says in many ways that one should not blaspheme Lord Vishnu through one's mind, words, or actions, for a blasphemer will go to hellish life along with his forefathers. Karmanam anasavacha yodvishad vishnam abhyayam majjanti pitadastasya nadake shasvati samaha In Bhagavad Gita 16:19-20, the Lord says, Tanaham dushatak, we just quoted this one. Tanaham dushatak kuram samsareshu naradaman chapam vijatsamashaban asuri shevayonishu asarim yonamapanna mudha janmani janmani mama prapyaiva konteya tato yanchadamham gatim. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demonic species of life. Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. Close quote. One who blasphemes the Lord is put into a family of asuras, in which there is every chance of forgetting the service of the Lord. Lord Krishna further states in the Bhagavad Gita 9:11-12, Avajanandi mamudha manushim tanam ashritam padam bhavmajananto mamabhuta maheshwaram. Mudhas, rascals, blaspheme the Supreme Lord because he appears exactly like a human being. They do not know the unlimited opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Moghasha moga karmano moga jnana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva pagatim mohinim shitaha. Anything done by those who have taken the attitude of enemies of the Lord will be baffled, mogasha. If these enemies try to be liberated or to merge into the existence of Brahman, if they desire to be elevated to the higher planetary systems as karmis, or even if they desire to return back home, back to Godhead, they will certainly be baffled. As for Hiranyakashipu, although he was extremely inimical toward the Supreme Lord, he always thought of his son, who was a great devotee. Therefore, by the grace of his son, Prahlad Maharaj, Hiranyakashipu was also delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hiranyakashipus chapi bhagavan nindayatamaha vibhakshur atyagat suno prahladasyanubhavataha. This verse is from the 4th chapter, 4th canto. And I looked it up so I can get a translation. A little editing needs to be done here. And yes. There it is. Similarly, Hiranyakashipu, who by dint of his sinful activities always defied the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, entered into the darkest region of hellish life. But by the grace of his great son, Prahlad Maharaj, he also was delivered and went back home, back to Godhead. Okay. The conclusion is that one should not give up pure devotional service. For one's own benefit, one should not imitate Hiranyakashipu or Śiśupāla. This is not the way to achieve success. This is not the way to achieve success. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, this is kind of a little bit of an antidote to what we've been reading about how, anyway, and the next verse will also confirm that, the next few verses, if somehow or other one can fix his mind on Krishna, then whatever else happens, it could be through enmity, it could be through hate, it could be through envy, all the different things, fear, then that's auspicious. That fixing the mind on Krishna is purifying. But if one is an enemy, then he has to go through maybe being killed by the Lord and so many other things, you know. So it's not recommended, but the purpose of all is to show just how merciful the Lord is. Even if one is inimical, if he somehow or other thinks of him, then the life can be turned around and can become auspicious. And the classic verse in that regard is when Uddhava, he cites the killing of Putana by Krishna in his discussion with Vidura. And let me see, I've got that one here. Yeah, here it is. Oh, how shall I take, this is the translation. Aho bakiyam stanakala kutam jigangsayapya yedapya sadvi lebegatim datuchitam tatonyam kamvadayalam shadanam vajema. This is a very famous line. How will I find anyone more merciful than Krishna? Oh, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he, Krishna, who granted the position of mother to a she-demon, Putana, although she was unfaithful, although she was faithless, and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. So this is quite startling, actually. This is the first demon Krishna killed, if you recall. And he's just a little baby, in the bassinet kind of thing, And this Putana demon, they're all assigned by Kamsa to go and kill Krishna. So these demons, they have the shape-shifting yogic power, many of them. So she turns herself into a very attractive young woman, And she in that guise, she was able to walk right into the inner quarters of where Krishna was sleeping. And there was Mother Yashoda and their friends, and they said, "Oh, this beautiful woman, it must be Lakshmi has come to see Krishna." So she had smeared her breast with a terrible, fast-acting poison to kill Krishna. That was her plan. In fact, that was her main business. It was killing little babies and drinking their blood. When I read that, I read all about the demons, and she was the worst. This is the worst, to kill little babies and drink their blood. So anyway, that was her business. So, but she saw, when she looked at Krishna, he closed his eyes, and she said, "Oh, he's all very powerful," But even though she did that, she had that assignment, and she followed through. So you know what happened. Krishna sucked her breast, but he also sucked out her life, and she started screaming, and she reverted to her original form, which is how many miles long? 8 miles, I think, 8 or 12 miles long. Knocking down trees, everyone was frightened, women were having miscarriages, it was a tremendous disaster. And then Mother Yashoda, where's the baby? Where's the baby? So she sees him, he's crawling on her breast and just playing, so, oh, thank God, So, but this verse says, in spite of that terrible enmity, because she suckled Krishna, Krishna accepted that, and he gave her a position, it's described here, Datri, which is a wet nurse. In other words, in the spiritual world, she's the assistant of Mother Yashoda. So she was completely purified, obviously, of all her demonic tendencies. So therefore, think about it. If someone just punches you in the nose, the last thing you're going to be is their best friend, right? But the speaker tried to kill you, But so therefore he says, how can I find anyone more merciful than Krishna? So this is the point of what we've been reading, is that Krishna is so kind, because ultimately we learn in the Bhagavad Gita, Sava yona shakunteya murtiyak sambhavanteya tasam brahma mahadyona aham bija pradakpata. The last line means, I am the seed-giving father of every living entity. That includes the ants, the trees, the demons, everyone. But here in the material world, we have been inimical to Krishna. We turned away from Krishna. There's that famous verse. I'm not going to chant this one that I always chant, Bhayam Dutiya Binaveshitak. But the other one, probably will quote even more often, by Jagadananda Pandit from the Prema Vivarta. Krishna Bahamukha Hoya Bhoga Vanchakari Nikatastamaya Japatiya Dari. This Japatiya Dari, it's football season now in America. So some of us, at one point or another, maybe some didn't ever see a football game, but they're tackling. They're running, big guys, and some guy weighs 300 pounds, grabs and tackles them, throws to the ground. And oftentimes there's a concussion or something, or a near concussion. Is the most horrible sport, After some years, your brain doesn't work anymore. You get depressed. Some people commit suicide. Horrible. But anyway, that dragging, pulling down, and throwing down, that's what Japatiya Dari. So what it says is that the living entity who turns away from Krishna, this Bahimukha, is there, or Vayam Dutiya Binaveshitaksit, Ishada Petasya, means the same thing, turn away from Krishna, from his face, And what are you facing then? The material energy, you see? So as soon as you face the material energy with interest, she's, yes, come on, let me cover your knowledge, the Avaranatmaka Shakti, and the Prakshitatmaka, that's the throwing down. Covering and throwing. As soon as that happens, and that's how we all got here. That's Prabhupada's understanding. We all got here. Somehow or other, we got curious about being interested in, let's see what's going on in the material world, maybe I can enjoy. Boom, you get covered, you forget everything, and then you're in the material world. So that's the very dramatic verse by Jagannatha Pandit in his Prema Vivarta. So, but this is, you're still a son of Krishna. You're still his children. And that's why he comes. He comes, because the only hope for the living entities is to somehow get back into the Dharma to reform the mentality so that we can regain our original love for Krishna. No matter how deep demonic you become, buried deep within that heart, in that consciousness, is our original tendency to love and serve Krishna. It gets covered, it gets distorted. And the kama is simply prema. That has been distorted by contact with the material energy, with the three modes of nature. That's very nicely explained at the end of the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So, there's no eternal damnation, even though it seems to be. If you read the Bhagavad Gita, I perpetually throw them down into and they never come to me. But it doesn't mean never, 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 never. It means you can have a long time in the hell. We just read the hell chapter a few months ago, that in the 5th canto, and that was just a sampling, just hair raising, and it's meant to do what it often does. Says, well, I don't want to do that. How do I avoid that? By serving Krishna. So that's the next chapter where Parikshit Maharaj says, because he's the Vaishnava, he feels very sorry to hear about all these poor suffering souls, even though they were demons, So then, as we know, then there's a whole chapter about Jamiel and how the holy name is really the salvation, especially in this age. As soon as you hear and chant the holy name, even a little bit, tremendous purification takes place. Because we have all, if we've been in this material energy for so long, we all have a history, and we have tremendous amount of bad karma that is, controlling us. But huge amounts of it can be wiped away. In fact, it says even once chanting purely, it's all wiped away. So the holy name is Krishna himself, and through that means we can truly turn back into what we're supposed to be, which is that we're thinking of Krishna not inimically, I mean, most people, they're in the worst position. They don't think of Krishna at all. That's the worst position to be. Because then, in this age, you're practically sure to lose the human form of life. So that's the preaching mission, to at least get people to take a book, hear the holy name, take a little prasadam, somehow or other show some interest, turn their mind toward Krishna. And that's then part of their whole mentality, their mind. So when they die, that's in there also. So they'll get a human form of life and then meet a devotee again, and this time maybe they'll really get interested, That's the whole idea of the Sankirtan movement. To gather up as many people who really can become interested and serious, and maybe in this one life or a few lives actually become pure and go back to Godhead. That's the whole idea. But all those who don't become pure, but somehow or other contact the movement, And let's face it, I've been in this movement so long. I'm so very fortunate. It was never conceivable to me that I would leave, which is, but so many of my god brothers, god sisters, they still maintain, practically all of them, maintain a very favorable attitude toward Srila Prabhupada. They may have some books in their home, but they're not full practicing devotees anymore. There's so many things that material life just takes over, just to try to pay the rent, and the groceries can take up so much of your consciousness, so much of your daily effort, So it's difficult once you detach yourself from the movement. But still, it's all auspicious. Any contact with Krishna. And here, the whole point here, we're going to come across a very famous verse. Prabhupada would always, I think he would quote, it's in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, this verse is quoted, it's coming up. Tasmat upayena, how's it go? You know this one? Tasmat, Yeah, yena kena. The verse is yena kenap upayena mana Krishna deveshiyat. And Prabhupada, yena kena upayena mana Krishna deveshiyat. Which means somehow or other, fix your mind on Krishna. Somehow or other. And then it gives a list. It could be by lust, it could be by enmity, it could be by fear, Somehow or other, if you fix your mind on Krishna, especially when you leave the body, then your life becomes auspicious. You may not go back to Godhead right away, because you're so contaminated. But you'll get, like we had the Śiśupāla. He didn't go back to Godhead, but he merged. Same thing happened with Aghasura. Remember Aghasura? Aghasura's big snake. Aghasura, personified sin. That's what Agha means. So his means of killing was swallowing. So he opens up his mouth and sits on the path, 8-mile-long python, you can imagine, And so Krishna's with his boyfriends, he's with his friends out in the forest, And they're all completely confident of Krishna's protection. So they look at it, what is this thing anyway? It looks like a big cave, Oh, wait a minute, there's some teeth. And finally they figured, oh, it's a big snake, Oh, big snake. Well, Krishna's right here, he'll save us. So they walk in. They walk into the snake and they actually die in there. And Krishna says, oh, what am I going to do now? So he has to go in also. And all the demigods are watching and they freak out when he goes in there because they think it's a goner. And so he goes in there, glances at his friends, brings him back to life, chokes Aghasura. Aghasura can't breathe, and so his soul breaks out of the top of his head and waits in the sky. This is all witnessed by the demigods, this. And then all the boys, everyone walk out. And then when Krishna walks out, the soul comes and merges in Krishna. And so you got to say you're Jimukti. It's not something that we would want, right? Because we want to merge, we want to serve. But it's a lot better than being, the demon servant of Kamsa. So that happens quite a bit. And it's all of this that we're reading is to show the tremendous mercy of Krishna. How any kind of contact with him, and especially if it results in you're always thinking of him some way, it could be, enmity, as I mentioned, or whatever. That's purifying. That's purifying. But this whole purport was dedicated to saying, but don't think that you can go back to God by blaspheming Krishna. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilena Bhaktarutana. This is right at the beginning of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. What is this pure devotion we're after? Anyabhilashata shunyam. First of all, what it isn't. Anyabhilashata shunyam jnana karma jnanavatam. Meaning being free from all other desires, which are listed as jnana, karma, etc. Adi. Jnana is basically the desire for liberation. We shouldn't go to Krishna and ask, please save me from birth and death. That's not our thing. That's why Lord Chaitanya said, Nadanam Nadanam Sundaram. If you study the verse, he's listing all the things that he's not asking Krishna for, and one of them is liberation. Otherwise, why he say Janmani Janmani? Birth after birth. What is he looking for? Who knows the answer, the last line? Yeah. Pure devotion service forever. Another uninterrupted. That hoitiki pratihata is understood. Birth after birth. Let me have unmotivated devotional service. It doesn't mean totally unmotivated. It means unmotivated by anything material. The only motivation should be love. That's the biggest motivation. That's what we're looking for. And so many things we do in this material world motivated by love, but it turns out that love is very fragile. It may turn just the opposite. You may lose that motivation because it's not intrinsic. It's mayak love. It's kama mostly. Kama. That's the idea. Desire for one's own pleasure. So basically, we're trying to turn all this kama into prema. We're sublimating by the process of hearing and chanting, remembering, serving, all the 9 processes of devotional service. Because Krishna is all attractive, but we've forgotten him. The only reason why anything is attractive in the material world because it reflects a little smidgen of Krishna's attractiveness. Beautiful fragrances, something. But you move a little further off and it's stinky, That's the thing, the fragrances. It's all very ephemeral. Like we have so many flowers, Kali Yuga flowers, you never know. 9 out of 10. Nothing, But one was really nice this morning. Really. Oh boy. This is a pseudo. Okay. Hare Krishna. Maybe you can adjust. So we're waiting for Friday now. We'll be able to retrieve the other? Yes. Okay. We should really try to bring everything back that we take down. Okay. And then if it goes up a little higher. Haribo. So, that's the whole purpose of this, is to show how merciful Krishna is, even to his enemies. But as devotees, the last thing we want to do is think of Krishna as an enemy. We're trying to become cured from that disease of ignoring Krishna, forgetting him, and being critical of God. I remember as a child, oh my God, I was raised as a communist. So I was like, oh yes, religion is the opium of the people. I didn't know what opium was, but it was something bad. And and so I remember this. I mean, it's, you know, I forgot it for a long time, but then when I joined Hare Krishnas, I remembered it again. Visualize this 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid, you know, going to the heavens, and I'm cursing God out to see what will happen. Nothing happens, so he must not exist, you know, so it proves, you know, it's silly. And I was safe from all that. But so many people in this world, they claim to be religious, but they have a completely distorted view of who or what God is, you know. Or many people have just given up on religion, you know. They don't believe anything anymore because they've been cheated so many. You know, the churches and holy things. You know, there's a tremendous fall off in church attendance. Every morning I take these walks, a walk up Cass Street, and there's 2 big churches there. One was established in 1947. That's like 76 years ago now. You know, that's the I forget which one it is, the Lutheran church, and they have a lot of land back there behind. You know, they can imagine what Pacific Peak was back in then. It was a little post-war town. You know, the land is pretty cheap. And they bought it land, and they've got it, so everything is very nice, you know. I don't know how many people come to the church on Sunday, though. That's the real thing. How many attendees do they have? But in any case, people are, in America, you know, it happened for longer, after World War II in Europe, because all of the murder and all, you know, all of the destruction and everything, a lot of people became atheists on that basis. Prabhupada tells a story about one of his godbrothers from Germany who was there during World War II, and the women were all religious. They were Lutherans. Basically, they went to church and prayed ardently and fervently that their husbands, sons, fathers, brothers would return from the war, and the vast majority didn't. Or if they did, they were grievously injured, you know. And they all became atheists. They gave it up. They said, where's the God? You know, we prayed and prayed and prayed, and nothing happened. So that God is the order supplier is the standard thing that people think of. And even there's a type of theology, prosperity theology, you know, mega church, you know. They go there, and somebody won the lottery and said, oh, you prayed, you know, and he won the lottery. So, you know, here, they send you a sacred napkin, you pray on this, you know, it's only $99.99, you know, we can give you, it's a big scam. But people, you know, fall for this. But our religion is just the opposite, isn't it? The last thing you want to do is to become a Christian as an order supplier. What is the prayer? Please give me love of God, you know. Take away my material desires. Don't fulfill them. Take them away and replace them with attraction to you, to your pure devotees. Isn't it? There's so many prayers like that. My favorite is Queen Kunti. She's already a pure devotee, but she's teaching us how to pray. You know, the first amazing prayer, Vipadak Santa Takshashvat Tatta Tatta Jagadguru Bhavatu Darshanam Yaksat Apunar Bhavadarshana. We went through so many dangers. You read the Mahabharata, you know, they had the kingdom and everything, then they were cheated out of the kingdom, and then they were exiled, and so many years you had to be incognito, or you had to be another 13 years, whatever it was, you know. And she was with them. She was with her sons at the time. Right? So many dangers in the forest, and then the big one is the war itself. So she recounts them in brief, and then she says, let them happen again and again, because by seeing those dangers, we see you. In those dangers, we call out to you in helplessness, and you're always there to save us. You know, we feel your presence. But now you're going back to Dwarka after the war? No good, no good. Stay here, you know. Let the dangers come again, so maybe we'll see you. See, they're all opposite. where everyone else is saying, please save me from the danger, save me from the danger. And if they save from the danger, they forget about God. and then for me, the crown jewel of the prayer is near the end. Tvai me anandibasheha matir madhupate sakrit. Ratamun vahatara gange baugamudanvati. O Madhu's Lord, please ever fill my mind with thoughts of Thee, not any other kind. As Ganges' torrent flows into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to Thee. So that's the prayer of the real devotee. It's not for anything material, but simply for remembrance of Krishna, for pure love for Krishna, for giving up an artist. Please give me the strength to do this service for You, like that. And that's the path that we're on. Is anyabhilashita shunyam. And then the second half of the verse, anukulyasya sankalpa. I'm sorry. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma jnanavitam anukulyana krishnanushilanam bhaktiruttama. Bhaktiruttama, the supreme bhakti, is to simply always serve Krishna favorably. And the top is at every moment. At every moment, what is it that I can do right now that is most favorable to Krishna? Oftentimes it's just chanting and with great attention, you see, and you know, trying your best to help others to become Krishna conscious and do so many duties that were given, you know, in the hearing and chanting, attending class and everything. There's a program given. Rupa Goswami is given in his Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada modeled it all after that. So once you have this knowledge what you should do, and you know what you shouldn't do, then comes, please give me the strength to do what I do what I should do and to avoid what I shouldn't do. That's a very important prayer. So that is how we should practice devotional service. What is all this chanting, to come to the point of always remembering Krishna? The chanting is chanting and hearing and remembering are practically one thing when you're chanting japa, right? The whole point is my mind really on the holy name? Am I really remembering? But even if you're not, at least you're chanting. But you want to, you know, improve, so that you're actually absorbed in the holy name, understanding fully that this is not different from Krishna, which is totally inconceivable. But that's the reality. If you hear the holy name with absolute rapt attention, then you're totally associating with Krishna. And the result will be you become peaceful and happy. The happiness will go up, and the worry and the fear will go way down. And you could become completely successful in that. It all starts with the chanting, as Prabhupada very well knew, the chanting and the prasadam, to keep them coming back and to purify. You know, that was Lord Chaitanya's program: mass kirtan and mass distribution of prasadam. You know, and for those who are, you know, able to understand the philosophy, that's very important as well. All right. Any discussion on these points? Yes. Dvijamani. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for a wonderful lecture.
Hare Krishna.
I was always wondering about this question, and now this past time with Putana came up, so I wanted to ask. I know that the poison can enter and affect somebody, not only when you swallow it, but also when you breathe it, and also when you put it over your skin, it can also enter through the pores. So I've been wondering, how is it that Putana smeared poison all over her breast and it didn't affect her? It didn't enter her body.
Well, I don't know if that's in the Bhagavatam. Yeah, that's the point. You know, it's a powerful yogi, meaning that they develop powers, and one of the powers is that she wouldn't be affected by this poison. You know, just like I mean, Prabhupada would tell how these yogis that come down for the Kumbh Mela or the Magh Mela, you know, they're, you know, they could be 300 years old and they look like they're 25, because they, through the process of pranayama and some other powers, you know, they're able to do that, extend their age. So they and come on, shape shifting, you know, that's, you saw them. And I think Prabhupada said, don't, whatever you do, don't look in the eyes, you know, right? Because they're very sensitive, right? They can become angry easily. it just shows, you know, they got all these powers, but that basic thing that devotees you do, that where you lose your, you know, you become a good person, you know, that they don't have. You know, what is Durvasa? Durvasa. Durvasa's name means impossible to live with. You can't live with the guy because he's and we know with Ambarish and in other cases, you know, he becomes angry or inimical, you know. But he has powers. He could make the kritya and so many other things. So that's the answer, is that she, you know, whatever poison she was using, she had developed it so that she wouldn't be affected. But anyone else who touched it would be dead, especially a little baby, you can imagine.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
So yeah, and she was the worst. But she became the best. Krishna's wet nurse in the spiritual world. Go ahead, bro.
Sayuja Mukti, are they transferred to the Brahmajyoti, or because they're coming into Krishna's body, but what does that really mean for their individual consciousness, like from that position, merging into Krishna's body? Well, I always thought there was two varieties, that there was merging in the body and merging in the Brahmajyoti, but that's one thing, huh? Yeah, so I'm curious about merging into the body, because Krishna says that we're eternally conscious individuals. So if you're entering into God's body, what is life like? Like what?
Well, no more birth and death, anyway, you know. But what is your consciousness in there? That's the question. What does it mean?
Yeah, if you're aware.
You know, frankly, I never investigated that. I mean, we could try to figure out more details what that means. But it's certainly better than going to hell, you know. But it's not. It's definitely. But for devotees, it's as bad as going to hell. Kaivalyam nadakayate. Kaivalyam means, you know, becoming one. You know. And
is impersonal liberation, like into the Brahman effulgence, eternal? Is that the eternal position?
Well, no. It says, you know, that because you're not in your constitutional position. Yenye adabindaksha bimuktamaninas trayasta bhavat abhishuddha buddhaya aduha kṛṣṇa padang tatant patantyado anadvita yushadangura. This is a famous prayer by the demigods. When Krishna was going to take birth, they kind of hid in the dungeon, you know, and they were offering their prayers. And this is, so they're praising the devotees, but there are others, anye, O lotus-eyed Lord, who think they're liberated because they're in the Brahmajyoti. They, through a few, not everyone, not all of them, but through tremendous austerity. Because, I mean, after all, what is, you know, we learn what the Brahma Bhuta platform is, which is more or less being in the Brahman. And that's in the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna gives a list of, you know, ways to get there, aside from bhakti. And then Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, you know, a very joyful, free of attachment and hankering and so forth, you know. See everyone equally. But the problem is there's no bhakti there, if that's all you have. And so they think they're liberated because, oh, finally. I always compare it. It seems like they're diving into this big sensory deprivation chamber. You know, it's just the right temperature, so it's comfortable, and somehow it buoys you up, and so you're just, you know, let this go on forever. But then you realize, oh my God, I got to go to work, you know, and so you got to get out of it. So that's exactly what this verse says, is that padam kṛṣṇa patantyadho anadvita yushadangara. They fall down because they're averse to serving your lotus feet. So Prabhupada describes that. I was just hearing a lecture, you know. It's just, what can I say? Boring. It's boring. How much pleasure can you get from relief from all suffering and no birth, no death, no nothing, you know. Okay, great. But you're coming up to the 0 point. Real bliss and ananda is above that. The conditioned life, we're down below. We're always, you know, there's so much suffering, and we can get rid of the suffering a little bit. We think, oh, now I'm in bliss, right? I just took the pill, you know, and then, you know, it's a tragedy. Oh, I take the pill. Oh, okay, now I'm addicted to the pill. But then they poison the pill. The pill is too much fentanyl. Boom! Right here in San Diego, it's happening constantly. Overdose and kids. since it's crazy. But that's the end point of the perverted reflection of material life as opposed to the spiritual life. So no, you're not. Brahmacharya is not an eternal position. It's not eternal because you're not in a constitutional position. This is also not an eternal position, but we have to get the knowledge to be able to get out. But eventually everyone goes back, but meanwhile more are falling down, so there's always going to be a material world. Anyone else? Any online? I know they're practicing Mauna. They're out there. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.